Hi, my name's Alfie Terry, and today I'm going to be interviewing my father, Francis Terry, about the topic of collaboration in architecture. So, Dad, is collaboration something that attracts you about architecture?
Yeah, definitely.
Mm,
I mean, as you know, years ago, I was a painter. That was
mm,
my first love.
mm,
I trained as an architect, and then once I qualified, I went
mm,
off and painted for 3 years. I
mm,
rented a studio. I did portrait commissions, but ultimately, I found it quite a lonely, soulless existence.
mm, mm,
Because I'd worked as an architect before then, I missed chatting to people in the office. And it's not just chatting, you're trying to get over problems.
mm, mm,
And then you'd be talking to a craftsman, you'd
mm,
be talking to a builder, you'd be talking to a client. And
mm,
conversations are really central to architecture.
mm,
And that's what I missed. And that was one of my primary reasons for coming back to
mm.
architecture.
Yeah, being able to collaborate with stuff with people. I mean, I guess um, you get to see things that perhaps you didn't notice to begin with, and that's very.
Yeah, I think the point is that we all have different skills. And I mean, even in my office, some people are excellent at sort of putting things in boxes
Yeah.
once they know what the instruction is,
Mm,
and
mm,
they're
mm.
amazing at that. Other people are more about kind of blue sky thinking,
Yeah, yeah,
and even to the level of you're down to the type of programs people
yeah.
are
Mm,
good at. Some people are good at Photoshop, some people are good at AutoCAD. There's a
mm,
whole load
mm,
of different skills, and I think that's the beauty of an office is that you take all these different people with different life experience, different talents, and you bring them together to produce an amazing product.
mm. So there are kind of some main places in which I guess you collaborate with different people that
Yeah,
you write about in your essay on this topic.
yeah, yeah,
Maybe just sort of go through some of them. I
yeah.
think you
Sure,
mentioned
sure.
that the office is a big one for you.
Well, yeah, okay. Well, I mean, just that is interesting
Mm,
because when you're chatting in the office, obviously you do chat about day to day. It's
mm,
not like exam conditions,
mm, mm,
but you need to talk. And
mm,
this is actually why I find when the working from the home is so damaging
mm,
to particularly people who want to learn, because it isn't so much getting the answer that you wanted.
mm, mm.
It's sitting in the office and seeing the tension
Yeah,
that a
yeah.
problem has. Or, for example, you might, out of your corner of your eye, see someone like me preparing to do a pitch for a job,
Mm,
and you
mm,
see how seriously I take it,
mm,
and
mm.
things like that I virtually act them out beforehand, and
Sure,
all of
sure.
that. And I think also, a problem hits the office, and then all hands on deck. How do we solve it? And if you're not there to see it,
Mm,
that's very difficult. So,
yeah.
I suppose I I like the office environment. I think
Mm,
it's a creative place to be.
yeah.
And I find it rather wonderful that you have all these people who are very different
Mm,
coming
mm.
together, producing something. No one really knows outside the office or the direct professional team who did what, but the product comes out and it couldn't have been done by one person's talents,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
is
yeah, yeah.
amazing.
And what about with clients? Do you
Yeah,
that
I
must be a
mean,
massive source of.
yes, I think that some architects see the client as a just a basically a vehicle to produce their
Yeah,
vision.
yeah, yeah.
I don't view it like that.
Mm,
What I like to do is to take the client's brief or take what the client says
mm,
and really listen to it. The first thing I do with a project is I do these days, I call them
mm,
taster days, where I sit with the client and we look at the site and then we sit down with a blank piece of paper with my pencils and I just draw out a scheme
mm, mm,
in a day, which I can do in sketch form and to scale so that they get a sense of it. But what I'm trying to do is to really bring out what the client wants, because I've done lots of houses And I don't want to just do one of my own houses. I want to see what they want, and I want them to fall in love with the building. And so many of sometimes, for example, I will have a client who will suggest something that I think's not a particularly good idea. And years ago, I might have said, "Oh no, don't do that. That won't work." But now, increasingly, I'm thinking there must be something in that that's made them want that. And then there was a case, I did this with a summer house, that a client suggested this very deep loggia area where they wanted a table and a fireplace and all this. And I just thought, this isn't going to work at all. But I just kind of held my breath and designed it nonetheless. And it was a fantastic space, which was a collaboration between us two. I wouldn't have thought of it myself. And I think that a lot of things like that, if you don't listen to your clients, I think architects can go off on their own tangent. And I think you end up with these architects who are great at winning awards, but they do buildings that aren't loved by the people who have them. It's a real problem.
Well, I think, as you said before, there's a difference between seminal art and just good art.
Yes, absolutely. And I think there was some study that someone did where they worked out that architects who win awards, that's an inverse relationship with popularity of buildings.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Which is somewhat ironic.
Yeah. Well, I think they say that about a lot of sort of film awards as well, is often it will just be the most outlandish editing that wins the editing prize.
Yeah, or some political thing that's popular at the time.
Yeah.
But not actually just a kind of nice rom-com, like For Weddings and a Funeral or whatever. That wouldn't do well in awards. Actually, I think it did. But generally, those sort of crowd pleasers. You can't give awards to things like that.
No.
Yeah.
And what about other areas? I guess in the sort of when you're dealing with designers and builders.
Yes, I think there's really two sides to that. There's the rest of the professional team, so that when I design a house, I work with a landscape designer and an interior designer as well.
Yeah.
And what I like to do is bring in the landscape designer, interior designer, as early as possible. In fact, any consultant who's going to infect my vision. Affect the house. Should I want them round the table day one because I want to hear what they're going to say. And also at this early stage, there's just suggestions. Nothing's been built, so it's a pain. And it's expensive and time-consuming and demoralising when an interior designer comes along late, as they often do, and start changing things. And that looks unprofessional and it's extremely expensive. What I like is to get them there on day one. And again, like the client, they may suggest things I think are ridiculous. But let's indulge it. And maybe if they are open with me, open to me rather, there may be a kind of perfect via media between us, which gets what they want and avoids what I'm worried about. And sometimes a project can be a real kind of marriage of interior architecture and setting. Well, it should always be that. And I think the more help you can get, the better.
No, definitely. I suppose with craftsmen as well, you must have a similar kind of...
Yeah, I mean, that is an interesting one. I mean, when you do a building, you are effectively... It's a bit like being driven by your children, for example. They're just driving a car, which you're not in control of. It's like, when I did driving lessons with you. You're just sitting there, and you sort of believe you're in control, but you're not at all. And I don't lay bricks, and I don't pour concrete or make plasterwork ceilings. And you have to take people with you in a creative way. But you don't want to be a pushover. You don't want it to be, this is an easy way of doing it. A bricklayer might say, let's do it this way, it's quicker and easier. You don't want to indulge that. But you want to hear what they have to say. There may be a cheaper and quicker way of doing things, which is absolutely fine. And then you have to have. I mean, this is in a way, what is the architect's role is when there is that choice. You know when to compromise, and you know that your vision isn't going to be compromised by this compromise, or it's a compromise worth doing. And so yes, I think these discussions are really welcome. And sometimes, increasingly in the modern world, you're using materials which are not used to. I think traditionally the palette of materials was so small that it was quite easy to know the whole lot. But you never really, you know, a bricklayer picks up bricks the whole time. You know, they know about weights of bricks. They know, you know, all of this, how much they can do. You know, you need to listen to them, but you also need to stay true to your vision.
Yeah, it's a very difficult line to walk.
I don't think it is actually, if you have clarity. I think what's difficult is if you don't care yourself. And you're just doing the architect's role, and then you don't really know what's important. And that takes experience. I think when you're at the beginning of your career, you really don't know what you can let go. And the further you go, you can realise these are the three things that need to be perfect here. This is not so important. We can let, you know, and then you're working on about what, you know, the prices of doing something that's compromised. And then that's a client discussion as well.
And how do you think, like, most like contemporary architects deal with this problem? Like, how much do they let people muck in a lot? Or is it quite common for people to be very stringent with what they want? I
mean, I think architects have been brought up with this slightly inflated view of what an architect's role is. You know, it's like God is the architect of the universe. And it's the idea that you are the master, you are in control of everything. And and some architects do behave like that. But I would argue the architect is very much the servant of the client. The architect can do nothing without a client. In fact, Norman Foster famously said, an architect who complains about a client is like a sailor who complains about the wind. This is the setup. And I think that the architect they are the servant of the client. We do what they want. We advise. Every now and again the client does something which we don't like. And but when that's the case, I do say, I think this is a bad idea. And they may say, okay, I will still want to do it. Other times they might say, oh, right, if you think it's a bad idea, let's try and get something you like as well.
I mean, I think there's something quite powerful about that, to kind of say that something's a bad idea, but to agree to do it anyway.
Yes, I think that's true.
It's a good move.
I remember years ago I had some legal stuff to sort out, and it was a complete hassle. I couldn't be bothered to do it, and I just thought it was completely unnecessary. And I just said to the lawyer, can we just forget this? Because there were some documents to sign. I said, look, I just can't be bothered to do this. And she said, you could do, but it would be against my professional opinion. And then I kind of immediately signed it. But actually, the trouble with professions, and architects are no different, is that they play to the crowd. They don't. They aren't used to the real world. They are doing things for each other. They're doing things to keep the RIBA happy, to get awards, all of that. And sometimes it's good just to say, actually, I know what the professional opinion is, but I want to do this. And I think that is judgment, isn't it? But I think that, you know, there are two types of architects, and this has gone through the history of architecture. It's very much with us now. There are some architects, both modernist architects and particularly some classical architects, some of my friends and contemporaries. Some are very, very stringent about everything. This is my vision. I notice you're reading Fountainhead. or you got
Oh
a copy.
yeah. Do you know that book?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that the architect in that,
Yeah.
Howard
Howard,
Rourke,
yeah.
he is very much this architect with a vision
Yeah.
that the whole of society needs to just
Yeah.
ignore. In fact, I did hear someone talking about the Calatrava saying
Was it Robert Greene?
Robert Greene,
Yeah.
that's right. And he was saying that what a wonderful example he was, because Calatrava will do a design for a bridge,
Yeah.
and then it's just about to be built, or it's it's gone further, quite a long way down the construction process. And one day he'll just come into the office and just crumple up all the drawings and just say, we're starting again, and how wonderfully fresh and visionary that is. For me, that is completely stupid. And I think that the danger of doing that and the abortive costs of the work, just for an artist's whim, I just think is insane. But anyway, we have been propagated with this myth that architects and artists are these. It's a kind of replacement religion. Basically, these are the prophets and sages of our time. But it's a lie.
But it's difficult because I guess there is like an artistic side to it that is irrational, and I mean, there's obviously like it's not very fair on everyone to just suddenly scrumple up all the papers and just walk out. But at the same time, like. I think there is something very irrational about art being artistic, and I think with architecture it's much harder to reconcile this, because if you're a musician and you have a big plan for an album, and then one day you just kind of think, oh, actually I'm going to do something completely different, it's kind of, the cost is quite low. But I guess with the architect there is, it's much more of a formal, it's an interesting sort of joining of two things.
Yeah. I'm interested. Why do you think it's so irrational? Because it's artistic.
Yeah, I think artistic things often look very stupid to people who haven't had the idea.
Yeah.
Like a lot of.
I mean, I don't know. I think I think art is surprisingly rational, if you boil it down. I think that. There's obviously the vision of the person producing the work. Only Van Gogh can do a authentic Van Gogh. Whether you want that or not is a different matter. And I think that an architect has a particular way of designing, which is their vision. But I think there's definitely, even in the most artistic things, there is an element of rationality. For example, if I do a dome, I do half a sphere. That is for me the best shape for a dome. And that's the end of the discussion, really. I guess then you're into a quite deep philosophical question, like why is a hemisphere more beautiful than a kind of elliptical sphere, or one that's sort of like a bumblebee shape or like an onion. And yes, that is a discussion to be had. Yeah, you're right. It's a difficult one. I suppose to all intents and purposes, the artistic vision is the least rational part of the building process. The cost is rational. The performance of the materials is rational. The construction is rational.
It's kind of made out of lots of rational things, I guess.
Yes, and judgment. Which is ultimately irrational.
I suppose another thing we were talking about is sort of riffing off that idea, is that you have a lot of buildings aren't really remembered by the guy who designed it, but more by the person who was in charge, who commissioned it. Like Louis XIV with is that
Versailles,
right? Versailles, the Emperor Hadrian as well.
Hadrian's Villa and the Pantheon.
Exactly.
Well, I think that is, that is the point, that the architect is not in control. The person who's had the vision to do this is the client, and they should be the ones who are remembered. I mean, also the pyramids. You don't know who's the architect for the pyramids. It's the Favours, and I think that's the point. They're the ones who've had the vision, and they're employing an architect. I mean, I think the architect's role has evolved over time. During the medieval period, they were basically master builders. And I think, as you'll probably know from your Greek, architect is arch technician.
Yes, yeah.
So he is like archangel, he's the head technician.
Yeah.
And I think that during, I guess, the Baroque period, I suppose actually it was Vasari writing the lives of the artists, where Michelangelo was seen in semi-divine terms, the kind of stars aligned, and God allowed Michelangelo to be born, and he would, make us understand beauty in a different way.
Yeah.
So really, since then, there has been this sort of feeling that, architects are something special.
Yeah, there is definitely that. Yeah.
Wrongly.
Perhaps wrongly. Okay, and I guess just to round this off, you mentioned you saw I was reading the Fountainhead, but I was also reading another book called The 4 Hour Work Week.
Yes.
Which is kind of takes quite a radical shift to how we think about work. And what it basically says is, if you want to succeed in your job or in your business, just outsource everything that doesn't require you to do it.
Yes.
Or that you don't enjoy doing.
Yeah.
And I think it's quite radical, because most people think, oh no, I should do everything myself. But it's actually so true when you think about it. There's so much that the real power, I think, comes from being able to divvy up work effectively.
Yes. Yeah. No, I absolutely agree with that. I think that you need to work out what your role is within this huge building project, effectively. And for example, in our office, we design buildings. We don't do, and this is a bit of technical detail, we don't do what's called the contract administration. That is all of the aspect of the building to do with the cost the builder incurs for building it, who signs that off.
Yeah.
We give that to the project manager and the quantity surveyor. I think it's a better use of skills because an architect is someone with artistic skill and vision, understanding of construction. Why should they understand the minutiae of finance? You know, they built one brick wall that's worth £10,000. That's not their role. And also, you can get into the danger of marking your own homework. And because of this idea of architects being in the same way that the architect has had it's like a computer architect. It means you're in charge of the whole thing, and that piece of language has gone into the profession, and they end up being in charge of things they're not very good at. A quantity surveyor is going to be much better at working out how much money's been spent on that building than an architect, no question. And I think they wrongly do that. And what we do is we focus on designing the building, making the building a good work of architecture in terms of function, in terms of aesthetics, and in terms of construction. And we monitor quality both off and on site to make sure that the building is built absolutely as it should be. But anything that's not us. For example, I welcome interior designers coming in, and garden designers and landscape designers. They have something to offer. I can advise, but if someone spends their life doing the curtains and all of that, then they know what they're doing. And I think you have to respect people. And same with, it'd be interesting to know how long this division has gone on, but architects aren't actually allowed to do the engineering for you're not allowed to do the structural engineering for a house. You have to get a structural engineer.
Right.
So it's a complete fallacy that an architect's in charge of everything. They're not. But I think they need to. I think good architects need to focus on what they're good at, stick to that, do that incredibly well, and leave everything else to other people and collaborate with them.
Absolutely. Well, on that note, I think we should leave it there. But thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.